You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken Tech for your ears.
I want you to imagine a scenario. What if your top sales rep bursts into the conference room, absolutely thrilled, telling everyone they just closed a massive enterprise account?
Right. Handshakes all around. You're probably popping a bottle of something bubbly.
Exactly. But then you ask who the buyer was, and the rep looks you dead in the eye and tells you the buyer was, well, an artificial intelligence.
Which sounds completely absurd.
It sounds like sci-fi. But selling software directly to autonomous agents is actually happening right in front of us.
Yeah, it really is.
So we are looking at a huge stack of venture capital data, startup accelerator reports, and technical analyses to pull apart exactly how technology businesses are being built right now. I mean, how they are priced and scaled when autonomous code is the entity doing the heavy lifting. I am joined by my co-host to help look under the hood of this phenomenon because, have you seen these accelerator numbers yet?
I have, yes.
They are completely unhinged.
They really are. We are watching this fundamental transition, from tools that just help people do work to systems that simply do the work themselves.
Right.
And if you are listening to this right now, the implications of that touch literally everything. From the structure of your organizational chart all the way down to the actual mechanics of how you process a credit card.
Okay, let's unpack that organizational chart first. Because if an AI is out there, making purchasing decisions, what exactly is it doing inside the corporate hierarchy?
That is the big question.
Because the data suggests it isn't just helping middle management anymore, it is actively replacing it.
Yeah, so to understand why that is happening, you really have to look at what a company actually is. At its core, any large organization is just a giant system for moving information around.
Right. It is all about data flow.
Exactly. Companies move fast or slow, based entirely on information flow. For thousands of years, there was just no alternative to hierarchical systems.
You needed the humans.
Right. You needed layers of middle management to aggregate information from the bottom, filter it, pass it up to leadership, wait for a decision, and then push that decision back down.
But those human layers often bottleneck the flow as much as they help it, right?
Spot on. Artificial intelligence removes the need for humans operating in those middle layers. The routing and synthesis of information can just be done instantaneously by autonomous systems.
That makes perfect sense when you think about it structurally. Let's use an analogy here, actually. Think about an API, an application programming interface.
Oh, that is a great way to look at it.
Right. It is literally just the digital bridge that lets two pieces of software talk to each other directly without a human clicking buttons. So if your billing software needs to talk to your accounting software, they use an API.
Simple as that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For the last 100 years, middle management has essentially been a human API. They are the necessary translators taking, a complex spreadsheet from the marketing department, formatting it, and handing it over to sales so they can actually understand it.
Yeah.
But if we use autonomous agents, you don't need a human API anymore. The software just talks directly to the software.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. And it leads to a really fascinating concept crossing over from the industrial world. It is the idea of digital twins.
Digital twins?
Yeah, so in manufacturing, a digital twin is a virtual replica of a physical asset, like a wind turbine, for example.
Oh, right. So you test scenarios on the digital version to see how it performs before you actually touch the physical one.
Exactly. And what we are seeing emerge now are digital twins for knowledge work. So instead of copying a physical asset, companies are capturing bespoke workflow knowledge.
Give me a concrete example of that. What kind of workflow knowledge are we actually talking about capturing here?
Take the quote-to-cash process. That is the entire and honestly often painful administrative journey between a salesperson agreeing on a price with a client and the money actually hitting the company bank account.
Right. The legal checks, compliance, invoicing, all that stuff.
Yeah, all of it. In most companies, there is an employee, let's call her Susan, in operations. And Susan knows exactly how to unblock a stalled contract. She knows which legal person to email, what exception code to use, all those little tricks.
Because she has been there for 10 years.
Exactly. But when Susan leaves the company, that bespoke corporate knowledge walks out the door with her.
Right.
Now, companies are installing monitoring software that just watches those workflows for months. It maps the invisible decision trees Susan uses, so an AI agent can build a digital twin of her judgment and just run that process indefinitely.
Okay, hold on. I have got to push back on that.
Go for it.
Automating a complex administrative checklist is one thing. But when a key human leaves, Their intuition, their ability to read a room, their general vibes, that all walks out the door too.
Yeah, people always bring that up.
You are telling me a digital twin can replicate human intuition. It sounds like we were just slapping a fancy name on a glorified macro.
It is an uncomfortable thought, especially for anyone sitting at a white-collar job right now. But the brutal truth for many organizations is that a vast majority of what we classify as human intuition in corporate settings is actually just advanced pattern recognition.
Wait, really? Just pattern recognition?
Yeah, an experienced employee knows a deal's going south because the client takes 3 days longer to reply and starts asking highly specific liability questions.
Right, they sense a shift.
But an AI can monitor email latency, run sentiment analysis on the text, compare it to 10,000 historical deals in the database, and flag the exact same risk factor.
Oh, wow.
It isn't feeling a vibe. It is running a statistical model that perfectly mimics the outcome of human intuition.
Hey, if you are listening to this and wondering if your entire job is just advanced pattern recognition, that is incredibly confronting.
It really is.
But it perfectly explains the next massive shift in the data we are looking at. If these autonomous agents are literally absorbing internal workflows like that, quote, to cash process, the software companies building them aren't just selling tools anymore.
No, they are not.
They are providing the actual service.
Yeah, exactly. The dominant theory circulating in venture capital right now is that the next trillion-dollar company will be a software company masquerading as a services firm.
Masquerading as a services firm.
Yeah. Think about the historical progression. We started with software as a service. You bought access to an accounting tool, but you still had to hire an accountant to sit there and use it.
Right.
Then we got copilots, which help the accountant do the work faster. The leap we are making right now is from copilots to autopilots.
So instead of selling a complex marketing software platform to a marketing manager, you just, sell the completed marketing campaign directly to the business owner?
Precisely.
Yeah.
But that creates a massive dilemma for the software companies.
How so?
Well, selling the finished work means cutting their own power users entirely out of the loop. If your software does the job of an accountant, you cannot sell it to an accounting firm anymore.
Oh, right, because they will just see you as a threat.
Exactly. You have to bypass them and sell directly to the small business that needs the accounting done. It requires a completely different go-to-market motion.
But if they get it right, it works.
Oh, if a founder gets that motion right, the revenue acceleration we are seeing is completely mind-bending.
Mind-bending is putting it lightly. Let's look at the numbers coming out of recent startup accelerators because they genuinely made me do a double take.
They are wild.
There was a cohort where 14 different companies hit $1 million in annual recurring revenue before they even presented at their demo day.
And 85% of that batch were AI-first businesses.
Right. And for anyone who hasn't spent time in the venture capital trenches, hitting $1 million in ARR used to be a massive milestone.
It was huge.
It usually meant you had raised a seed round, spent years grinding, hired a sales team, and proved you had real product market fit. Reaching it unlocked your Series A funding. Now, it is literally just table stakes to get on a stage for a basic pitch.
It really speaks to how ridiculously fast value can be delivered when the product does the actual work.
Yeah.
You don't have to convince a user to change their daily habits. You don't have to train them on a complex interface. You just deliver the completed outcome, and they happily pay you for it.
It compresses the entire sales and adoption cycle from months down to days.
Exactly.
There is a specific example in these reports that blew my mind. A business called Chatbase. They build AI agents, and they bootstrapped their way to $9 million in annual recurring revenue with a team of just 18 people.
18 people. That is unheard of.
Right. No massive outside capital, because apparently printing $9 million with 18 people is just where we are now. How does an 18-person team manage a $9 million global operation? They certainly aren't hiring junior staff to manage customer support tickets or server loads.
No, they aren't. They're using autonomous agents internally to triage those support tickets, write software patches, and handle billing disputes.
So what do the humans even do?
The humans are just setting the high-level strategy. And we are seeing this hyper-efficiency happen across the entire industry.
Give me another example.
Look at platform infrastructure providers like RevenueCat. They manage the back-end mobile subscription revenue for thousands of apps. They reported a 40% growth in new developers shipping their very first production app in a single month.
Wait, a 40% spike in a single month? That isn't normal organic growth. Something broke the dam.
The dam broke because of a phenomenon people are calling vibe coding.
Vibe coding. Okay, explain that.
The technical barrier to entry has completely evaporated. You have founders who don't know how to write a single line of JavaScript or Python.
Right.
Instead, they open an AI assistant and literally just describe the vibe of the app they want. They type, build me a customer portal that looks clean, uses these 3 brand colors, and pulls billing data directly from Stripe.
And it just built it.
The AI writes the boilerplate code, structures the back-end databases, and deploys it. You are essentially managing a senior developer who works at the speed of light.
That is an unreal.
Yeah, and RevenueCat experienced that massive growth simply because they were positioned as the underlying infrastructure for this wave of rapid AI-assisted app development.
Okay, but this brings us to a massive brick wall that all these hyper-growth companies are about to crash into.
The pricing problem.
Exactly. If the software is doing all the work, and human team sizes are shrinking down to a handful of people, like that 18-person do you bill for your product?
It is tough.
The entire enterprise software industry has relied on per-seat pricing for 2 decades. You charge $50 per user per month, but you cannot charge per seat when the seat does not have a pulse.
This is arguably the hardest problem in technology right now. It isn't building the underlying language models. It is figuring out the pricing strategy.
Because the old models are broken.
Entirely broken.
Yeah.
If one autonomous agent can do the work of 50 human employees, you obviously cannot charge the client for 50 seats. You are only selling them one AI agent.
Right. And the economics behind it are fundamentally different. In traditional software, if you underpriced a human user seat, it wasn't a big deal.
No, the margin was massive.
Yeah, the marginal cost of adding one new user to a database is practically zero. You were just adding a text row in a server somewhere. But with AI, every single autonomous action triggers real back-end inference costs.
Exactly. And we really need to explain inference cost because it is the silent killer of AI startups.
Please do.
Every time an AI agent thinks or reasons through a complex query, it fires up massive graphics processing units in a server farm. That is inference. And it costs real electricity and immense compute power.
So it is a hard physical cost.
Yes. If you price your software too low under a flat rate per seat model, and a client lets an autonomous agent run wild processing 50,000 tasks over the weekend, you are literally paying your customers to use your product.
Oh, wow.
The server bills will bankrupt you before Monday morning.
Here's an analogy to make that crystal clear. Charging per seat for an AI agent is like charging for electricity by counting the number of light switches in a house instead of actually checking the power meter outside.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
Right. It does not matter how many switches there are on the wall. It matters how much juice is actually flowing through the wires.
Spot on. The light switch is the seat, the power meter is the compute. This is why we are seeing a desperate pivot towards usage-based models.
Like what?
Well, per token pricing, where you charge based on the exact amount of text or data processed, is becoming the default standard. We are also seeing credit-based models, where a user buys a bucket of credits up front.
And different AI actions just consume different amounts of credits.
Exactly, depending on how much server compute they require.
What about taking it a step further and just charging for the actual outcome?
Now, that is the ultimate destination for autonomous systems. If the software acts as a service, you should charge like a service.
So you don't charge for the software access at all?
Correct. Instead, you charge a 10% fee on the revenue recovered by an AI collections agent. Or you charge a flat $500 fee for every qualified sales lead an AI marketing agent puts on your calendar.
That makes total sense. Outcome-based pricing completely aligns the cost structure with the actual financial benefit the customer receives?
Exactly. Founders who fail to rethink their pricing for this pulse-free user are going to get severely undercut by those who figure out the new economics.
All right, let's step back and look at the big picture for a second. Pricing models are completely upended. Products are practically building themselves using vibe coding.
Yeah.
The actual software code is becoming a cheap commodity. So if you are a founder listening to this, how do you actually survive? How do you build a competitive moat around your business?
It requires a complete mental reset on what constitutes an advantage. Historically, execution speed and technical complexity were fantastic moats.
Right, if you could build it faster or better.
Yeah, if your engineering team could ship features faster than the competition or build a deeply complex back-end system, you won. But those moats are dead.
Dead.
Completely. When everyone in the market has an AI assistant writing code at lightning speed, your execution speed advantage drops to zero. Technical complexity is just no longer hard to achieve.
If speed and complexity are completely off the table, what is actually left to defend a business?
The analyses point to 5 specific moats that still hold up against autonomous systems.
Okay, lay them on me.
The first is compounding proprietary data. If you have unique, highly specific data that trains a better model, which attracts more users, who in turn generate more unique data.
That flywheel is incredibly hard for a competitor to break into.
Exactly. The second is network effects. A platform is simply more valuable because everyone else is already communicating on it.
Like trying to launch a new social network when everyone is already on another one. It doesn't matter if your code is better.
Spot on. The third moat is regulatory permission. Things like banking licenses or healthcare clearances take massive legal effort and human compliance.
Stuff an AI cannot just code its way out of.
Precisely. The fourth is capital at scale. Sometimes you just need massive venture funding to buy the raw compute power necessary to run the models.
Right. And the fifth.
Physical infrastructure.
Huh.
An autonomous agent cannot magically build a warehouse, dig a mine, or lay fiber optic cables.
That makes sense. That first one, though, compounding proprietary data, it really makes me wonder about the classic Silicon Valley mindset.
How so?
Well, for years, the golden rule was move fast and break things. Moving fast was the entire strategy. It sounds like the new rule is move fast and accumulate proprietary data.
That is a very astute observation. Moving fast is no longer the end goal. It is merely the prerequisite to capturing the unique data before someone else does.
Right.
And because the core product itself is easier than ever to replicate, the actual way you sell it becomes your differentiator. Go-to-market strategy has to evolve from an afterthought into a highly engineered machine.
Yeah, because most companies treat their go-to-market strategy like a junk drawer.
Oh, completely.
I have seen those junk drawers. A messy customer relationship manager, 3 disconnected email marketing tools, salespeople going rogue with their own personal templates. It is terrifying.
It is chaos. But survival now requires treating your go-to-market strategy as an actual software product. It needs memory.
Right.
It needs structured workflows, strict guardrails, and version control baked into the process. You cannot rely on ad hoc vibe marketing when your competitors have programmatic AI-driven outreach.
And part of that highly engineered go-to-market product has to be your digital storefront. I was genuinely fascinated by the observation in these reports that modern websites now have 2 completely distinct audiences.
Yes, this is a crucial shift for anyone maintaining a corporate presence. You are no longer just designing a website for human eyes, you are designing it for AI crawlers.
Right.
Autonomous agents from different language models are constantly scraping the web to ingest information and answer user queries. Most business websites are terrible at this.
Because they are only built for humans, right? Full of flashy video animations and vague inspirational marketing copy.
Exactly.
So how do you actually build a website that appeals to an AI crawler without alienating a human?
It is all about structural clarity versus emotional resonance. Think about how an AI reads a site. A language model doesn't care about your beautiful gradient background.
No, it just wants the facts.
It wants dense, highly accurate text, clear feature limitations, and transparent pricing formatted in clean data structures. It wants to easily answer a prompt from a user who is asking it to compare 3 different vendors.
Well, the human audience is just completely exhausted.
Yes. Every software tool promises to revolutionize their workflow. For humans, you have to cut the feature list and lead entirely with social proof, case studies, tangible outcomes, and absolute zero friction.
What does zero friction actually look like in practice?
It means embedding meeting scheduling directly into the product demo flow instead of gating your software behind a Contact Us form that goes to a generic inbox.
Right, nobody wants to fill out those forms anymore.
You have to satisfy the logical ingestion needs of the machine while catering to the emotional exhaustion of the human buyer.
Satisfying the logic of the machine and the exhaustion of the human, that is brilliant. Speaking of human emotion, there is one bonus moat we haven't touched on yet, and I reckon it becomes absolutely crucial when technology becomes a commodity. Branding.
Yes. When the underlying technology is easily replicated by anyone with an AI coding assistant, the brand becomes the ultimate defensible asset.
There's a fantastic example of this in the reports, Liquid Death.
Oh, that is a perfect case study.
They are literally selling water in an aluminum can. It is the ultimate, undeniable commodity. But they managed to produce a major sporting event advertisement entirely internally for roughly $300,000.
While their direct competitors were spending millions on traditional advertising agencies.
Exactly. I love the Liquid Death example so much. They knew their product was a commodity, it is water, so they decided the only way to win market share was by being absurdly memorable instead of trying to be marginally better.
They treated their brand as the actual product.
Yeah. And it proves that even in a highly automated, hyper-efficient, data-driven world, human creativity and a distinct identity still command immense commercial value.
Exactly. When you cannot win on technical features because AI has leveled the playing field, you have to win on mindshare.
Right.
Whether you are selling canned water or a complex enterprise software platform, if the buyer actually remembers you and feels an affinity for your brand, you have an advantage that an autonomous coding assistant simply cannot replicate.
Mate, this has been a genuinely fascinating exploration.
Yeah.
We started by looking at a world where autonomous code makes purchasing decisions, completely bypassing the human API of middle management.
Yeah, it is a huge shift.
We mapped out how software companies are transforming into direct service providers, delivering finished outcomes and pushing startup revenue metrics to absurd new heights.
The 1 million ARR before demo day.
Exactly. We unpacked the absolute crisis happening in pricing, shifting away from broken per seat models towards per token and outcome-based metrics. And finally, we looked at the reality of shrinking moats, where technical execution speed is dead, and the new battlegrounds are proprietary data, highly engineered go-to-market systems, and unforgettable branding.
It is a profound transition. The fundamental mechanics of how a business operates, scales, and defends its territory are being rewritten right now, in real time.
Which brings us right back to that absurd reality of the AI sales rep negotiating with the AI buyer. If an autonomous buying agent is hashing out a contract with an autonomous selling agent, who exactly is writing the sales script, and do they even need a website to look at in the first place? It is a wild thought to leave you with as you consider how your own business is adapting to these massive shifts. Keep questioning the systems around you, and thank you for spending your time with Vocal Technologist.
Spoken Tech, for your ears.